Good afternoon, Ladybugs and Yellow Jackets. Welcome to this Friday's episode of Author Reads here on Fae Productions. Happy New Year. This is our first episode of the new year. I am your host, Fairy Princess Lolly, and today I'm here with Ted Weber. But before we jump into the show, let me get our obligatories out of the way. First, wherever you are watching from, if you can just go ahead, like, subscribe, and ring the bell, if you will. That helps everybody out. And also, as you know, because basically events are starting to be canceled again here for 2021, and everything was canceled last year. We've been doing a lot of events. I know, boo hiss. We've been doing a lot of events here via the channel and our Discord. We had our Cyber Samhain and our virtual and our New Year. And so we are doing, coming up here for IMBOLC, which is February 2nd. It is a candlelight, so it's a candle holiday, and we are doing an IMBOLC candle Fairylight circle. And so if you are interested in signing up for that, we're going to do a candle exchange, and then we will have a live stream event happening here on the channel. Here's the information to sign up for that. It's also in the low bar as well. I just want to put that out there. The cutoff date for signing up is January 23rd, so you guys have 2 weeks to get in on that. And there's no cost or anything other than getting a candle for your candle exchange person. So you will get a candle as well. That is how that works. Anywho, please go and check that out if you're interested. And of course, a shout out to today's show sponsor, which is Spirit Fire and Dew. And Spirit Fire and Dew is a small business that makes fine silver and whimsical polymer clay jewelry. It's handmade with love by local artist Kelly Turnbull, and there are custom options available. So, alas, their coupon code through December has expired. But if you go check them out on spiritfireanddew.com, and if you do decide to purchase, please let them know you found them via Fae Productions. And happy shopping, guys. Thank you so much, Spirit Fire and Dew, for being a sponsor here on the show. And with that said, then I welcome today's author, Ted Weber. Hi, Ted.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for inviting me to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. My coffee has arrived.
All right.
It's really full.
It looks really big when it's close to the camera.
Yes, it actually is quite big as well. This is a cool handmade mug that I was given. Although you can't see on the bottom, but there's a pressed fairy on the bottom, like somebody sat the mug on a fairy. It's pretty cute. With coffee in it, I will not show it to you, though. Well, please, if you will, introduce yourself to our audience. Oh, my gosh, my kitty is getting in the way of everything. To our audience, and tell everybody who you are and what you write, if you will.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Ted Weber. I just finished a cyberpunk trilogy. And the final book came out in October of last year. And so I guess to give a brief overview, it's called the Better World trilogy. It's a science fiction / techno thriller story series set in the near future. And in it, a giant media corporation called MediaCorp has taken over the internet, created an addictive virtual reality called Better World, and controls nearly all information. And politicians do their bidding, and a brainwashed humanity serves a privileged few. So in the first volume, Sleep State Interrupt, in that Whaley Freed, who's an unemployed Baltimore journalist, and Charles, who's a teenage hacker from public housing, seek to wake up the world and bring about a brighter future. And to do so, they have to sneak into a closed presidential fundraiser, record incriminating admissions, and broadcast it during the Super Bowl. And then to do so, they have to avoid a massive manhunt and break into one of the most secure facilities ever built. So that's the first book of the series. And the second book, Wrath of Leviathan, is sort of the Empire Strikes Back part of the trilogy. So Whaley faces life in prison. Her young sister Kyoko and her hacker friends are exiled in Brazil, but they continue the fight. But MediaCorp and their government allies may quash the rebellion before it takes off. And unknown to them, a team of ruthless mercenaries is after them and closing in on the list. And that brings us to the final volume, Zero Day Rising, which just came out. The group is reunited, and they're set on bringing down President Rand and MediaCorp. However, MediaCorp unleashes their ultimate plan, which is direct mind control with cerebral implants. And it's up to Whaley, Kyoko, and their friends to stop them and end MediaCorp's grip over humanity. So that's the Cyberpunk trilogy. And I've got a bunch of other books that are either finished and in the process of being published, or are being edited, and they run the gamut from alternate history to satire to horror. And then I've got a bunch of short stories on my website also, which are free.
Also, that information is right there in the ticker and in the low bar as well, your website, so people can check it out. So
tcweber.com.
I am, yes, I am curious, why did you choose? Now, you're an award-winning author as well, right? You've got some awards and some nominations.
Yeah, it was, so the first book was a Compton Cook Award finalist for Best Science Fiction Novel, Best First Science Fiction Novel. And then it got a gold award from, I can't remember who now, which is kind of embarrassing.
That is okay. Some of the award names, actually, I have learned in the process of doing this show, are really long. They're really long. But so I'm curious. So why
I put all that stuff on my press release stuff, and then I forget about it.
After a while, they add up. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot. So I'm curious. Why this genre? What about this genre is inspires you to write?
Well, I write in a lot of different genres. Most of them speculative fiction of one sort or another, and but I've always been a big cyberpunk fan ever since I read Neuromancer by William Gibson and his other books, and Bruce Sterling and Neil Stephenson.
Yes.
And cyberpunk is a really cool genre. It's kind of like noir, and it's like science fiction noir. And I'm also a big noir fan, so they kind of go together.
Do you think that someday your cyberpunk novels could be predictive, sort of in the way that is it Arthur C. Clarke or other Isaac Asimov? You know, sometimes it seems like they've written predictive science fiction.
That's funny, because I have an author friend in Baltimore who keeps saying, when something comes out in the news, that was in one of my books, he says, "Stop predicting the future, Ted," because it's usually something bad. Like some of it's good. So I wrote the first book in 2012, or when I wrote the first draft, and so there's all this virtual reality stuff, like the types of gear they have and the shared virtual reality, and now there is, you can buy virtual reality goggles and headsets and all that. And there's a VR chat. So you can interact with people in VR. But some of the stuff regarding government surveillance and government surveillance in virtual reality has happened, and probably don't need to tell anyone on here
Right.
how pervasive government and corporate surveillance is. It's not just the government, but it's
we are all being observed
media
all
companies.
the time. Yeah. Media is everywhere. That's our world.
And his ilk.
I mean, I think that everybody has had the experience of, I clicked on one thing and then I got all of these ads, right? Or I just said, I like Dobermans, and then suddenly...
And then it appears in something totally different, like your Google search.
Yeah. So I'm
they know, Google and Facebook know everything about you.
So do you have any, aside from writing, unless I don't know if writing is where your career started or if you have a background in something else, but do you have a background in something that's technical, like cybery like, or is that a passion that you basically threw yourself into and studied and learned about for the purposes of writing?
Well, I've been writing and doing other arts like filmmaking for a long time, I guess basically since I was a kid. I work as an ecologist, though and now I work as a climate adaptation analyst for Defenders of Wildlife. So
Oh,
that's
cool.
looking at ways to help endangered species and then other species adapt to coming changes in the climate. So it's like
How can
identifying
I fit my
where,
little fairy heart?
so where can they go when it gets too hot and there's mega droughts in the Southwest and massive hurricanes and so forth, and how are we going to save them and save ourselves too? So it's uh,
So, okay.
but
So,
my fiction is not really related to that. Although I'm now the horror, post-apocalyptic horror story that I'm working on now is set after a post-climate disaster. But I don't
well, I was
talk
going to
about the
say,
disaster itself. But it's
yeah,
yeah,
well, because I was going to say, it's like you're kind of in the perfect position to know what it would look like if certain
yeah,
types of disasters happened because of your job, right? You know what would be the environmental impact of, an enormous hurricane, like you're saying, or just sweeping droughts, and how that would affect all of the ecology, because that's literally what you do, which kind of gives you the ability to really bring that home, the realism of
yeah.
that home. And that's, to me, that's what makes things scary, right? Scarier when it is close enough. It's not so far out that it's it's unimaginable, right? But it's close enough that you can imagine that, this might actually happen. Like that adds to that.
And I could also throw in some of the stuff I know from working in the field about which plants are edible and which ones are poisonous, and so
Urban
these
survival.
yeah, and this is 200 years after the like 200 years from now, and so people that are still alive in the hot areas, they can only go out at night and like beginning of dawn. Then it gets too hot, and then they really have to know how to survive and eat insects and things like that. And
Well,
it's not pretty.
fascinating too that you say that, like, they can only go out at night, because I assume that then after it gets super hot, they have to
Yeah,
go someplace.
after about 9 a.m., they have to go. They have to find someplace underground.
And that's not actually all that strange outside the realm of reality, because I know that, for example, NASA looking at colonizing Mars, some of the things that they look at, because it's very, very cold and windy on the surface of Mars, they look at going down like miles into the canyons on Mars to put people where they will be safe from all of these surface elements. So it's a very realistic approach to dealing with, extreme surface weather.
Right. And so for the cyberpunk books, one of the things that inspired me besides the cyberpunk genre is like two things. One, government and corporate surveillance and massive you know, data profiling of people. And the other is net neutrality and the loss of net neutrality, which at the time when I was writing them was being debated. And then after Trump was elected, they did away with it, basically. So these books are set in a near future world where net neutrality has been eliminated. It leads to an information monopoly, and one
Oh
company
yeah.
under the leadership of one man controls nearly everything people see and hear.
Ooh.
So it's like the logical extension of how bad things can get, and we're seeing symptoms of that with the concentration of media and the decline of journalism. So Maryland, where I live, they've lost all their newspapers. They've been taken over by the Tribune Company in Chicago. They shut down our hometown paper, which was started in the I think the 1750s. So it was before there was even a United States. So
That's
yeah, so
crazy.
things are already getting bad.
So now, which book are you going to be reading to us from today?
I'm going to be reading from Zero Day Rising because it
The
just
newest?
came out. It's the newest one. It came out in October.
Okay. Would you like to give us a little bit of a setting premise so that we know what we're coming into here?
Sure. So first and then I was going to have as a background, the background of the scenes, but um, I thought maybe we would do it on some other platform, but I've never used this platform before, so I'm just going to have to describe it instead.
Okay.
So the first scene is set from Kyoko's point of view. She's one of the main characters of the series, and it's set in the Bahamas. It's set on the uh, Grand Bahama Island, and the rest kind of speaks for itself. And then I'm going to read three scenes. None of them are super long, but
Okay. I'm going to turn the camera over to you here in just a second for everybody watching at home. While Ted is reading, if you guys have questions that you would like to ask when he is done with the reading, please put your questions into the comments as he continues on. And when he's done, then we will take those questions one by one so that he can answer them. And then towards the end of the show, we will have our classic giveaway of some books. So that is where we'll be. I'm going to step back here, put myself on mute, but I will be in the comments in order to take your guys' questions and whatnot. So are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
I am always ready. Here we go. There's your screen, and I'm going on mute.
All right. Blazing sunlight half blinded Kyoko as she exited the small jet. Squinting, she followed Nicholas, who'd insisted on going first, down the steps to the tarmac. Her legs rejoiced at the movement. The flight from Sao Paulo had taken a day and a half, including stops for refueling. We're really doing this, she thought, trying to free my sister and take down our enemies. Nicholas, a strong-jawed, brawny man with a buzz cut, was a combat team in Serviço de Segurança Globais, Brazil's biggest private security company. Kyoko's now-deceased fiancé, Gabriel, had worked there as a bodyguard. Before joining SSG, Nicholas and Gabriel had also served together in the 1st Special Forces Battalion, Brazil's primary special operations force. Elzira, who'd be arriving later, was also ex-military and had helped Gabriel guard Kyoko, Charles, and Pell in Sao Paulo. Pell and Charles followed Kyoko out of the jet. Pell, who was Whaley's longtime boyfriend, was tall and olive-skinned. Charles was shorter and coffee-skinned. Both were elite hackers, members of the inner circle of the collective. Pell was brilliant with hardware, and Charles, even though he was only 17, was a legend on the ComNet. And me, Kyoko wondered, what skills do I have? Her energy curdled and the sunlight seemed to dim. Anything she needed to know, she'd learn. Media Corps and the Red administration were doing everything possible to catch or kill Kyoko and her friends. A middle-aged black man drove up in an electric cart with a plastic awning. His white shirt had gold and black epaulets, signifying him as an official of some sort. "Hello," he said as he got out. The pilot, a short-haired woman wearing auto-adjusting sunglasses, handed him a data pad, presumably containing the flight manifest. The official peered at the pilot's data pad, then placed a comlink against it, probably downloading the information. He looked at Kyoko, Nicholas, Pell, and Charles. "Are these all the passengers?" he asked the pilot. "Yes." The official turned to Kyoko, who was closest. "First trip abroad?" the official asked her as he flipped through her fake Brazilian passport and scanned the RFID chip. Kyoko's new name, chosen by the forger, was Fridia Tanaka, age 21, a year more than her actual age. Kyoko caught herself fidgeting. Don't act nervous, she told herself. She spoke with a Brazilian accent, which she could fake pretty easily. Yes, we are very excited to be here. They are supposedly friends on vacation. Anything to declare? No. She opened the outside pocket of her black leather carry bag and handed him her immigration card and customs form. The official glanced at the forms, then smiled and stamped her passport. Welcome to the Bahamas. She smiled back. Obrigado. Thank you. Pell's research had paid off. To enter the U.S., they would have needed a visa, requiring weeks of lead time and a lot more deception. And U.S. airports were security fortresses, with biometric scanners, database verification, and trained profilers. The Bahamas, on the other hand, welcomed visitors with minimal fuss and were a short boat ride from Florida. The customs official stamped Nicholas's forged passport next, then turned to Charles. Charles broke into a sweat and started stammering his answers with an appallingly bad accent, despite all those hours of practice. The official stared, suspicion on his face. Damn it! Kyoko sighed, put an arm around Charles, and kissed him on the cheek. She spoke to the official. Gustavo is, how do you say, autistic. He gets nervous easily. Charles stiffened at the untruth, but the official nodded and stamped his passport. He cleared Pell, then drove off. Why you gotta say that? Charles asked Kyoko, his shoulders hunched. Kyoko caught herself sighing. I'll think of something else next time. Better yet, don't choke like that. Pell and Nicholas fetched their pre-rented SUV, white with dark-tinted windows. They loaded their gear, which included duffel bags full of weapons, armor, and electronics. Kyoko took the wheel, which was on the right side instead of the left, and Pell took shotgun. This was a British colony, Pell said, so stay on the left side of the road. Kyoko knew that already, but didn't respond. She took a near-empty road out of the airport. I can't thank you enough, Nicholas, she said as she approached a big traffic circle with battered trees. Not only had Gabriel's comrade arranged the jet and taken time off work, he'd be risking his life with them. Forget it, Nicholas said in Brazilian accented English. I failed Gabriel, but I won't fail you. From the shotgun seat, Pell said, Go halfway around and hop on the Grand Bahama Highway. I hope Whaley's holding up, Kyoko said as she followed the circle. Me too, Pell said. If not, it's that much more important we break her out. She's lucky to have such a devotion, Nicholas said from behind. Pell kept his eyes on the road. She deserves it. The Grand Bahama Highway was a faded 2-lane road through scraggly pine forest, half the trees shattered or knocked over. After about half an hour, Kyoko turned onto a dirt road, leaving all signs of civilization. From aerial photos, Pell said, the whole island was girded for houses. But ours is only one of the only ones actually built. Too many hurricanes, or not enough drinking water, or maybe just bad economics. You said you will have power and water, though, right? She asked. Yeah, you'll see. Follow this road 2 miles and take a right. Kyoko followed his directions. They arrived at a small clearing containing a vinyl-sided cottage with peeling yellow paint, a matching tool shed, and a rainwater cistern. The cottage stood on cinder blocks well above the ground. Heavy shutters covered the windows. The roof was topped by glued-on sheets of solar cells, and a new-looking satellite dish protruded from the far end. Their new home was hotter than the airport, with no breeze. There was nothing to see besides storm-battered pine trees and dense palmettos covered with razor-sharp teeth. Probably why the island interior was so deserted. It was a perfect staging ground, no prying eyes. I love it already, Pell said as they unloaded. He was the one who'd rented the house with cryptocurrency and had it stocked with food and supplies. Of course you do. Kyoko swatted at converging clouds of mosquitoes, a lot more bothersome than the heat. Did we bring bug spray? Should be some inside. As instructed, the house key was in an envelope beneath the doormat, laughable by Baltimore and Sao Paulo standards. Then again, what was worth stealing here? The inside was dark and musty. Kyoko switched on the overhead LEDs and fans. Giant cockroaches scurried for cover. "You better run, you little bastards," she warned. Nicholas volunteered to take the sofa. That left 2 bedrooms in the back, each with 2 narrow beds and a wooden dresser. Kyoko dumped her bags in one room, and Charles and Pell agreed to share the other. The bed looked inviting. The plane seats didn't recline all the way, and sleeping had been nearly impossible, but they had a lot of work to do. First, they had to find out when her sister would be transferred from the federal courthouse in Richmond, Virginia, their only realistic opportunity to free her. Then they had to sneak into the U.S., past Coast Guard patrols and local police. They had to intercept the transport vehicle and extract Whaley without anyone getting killed or caught. And finally, they had to evade the huge manhunt that would follow. And that was just for starters. The ultimate goal was to bring down MediaCorp and their allies like President Rand, make them pay for Gabriel and Adriana's deaths, and end their stranglehold on the world. But Whaley was a genius. She'd figure that out. The biggest problem was they didn't have much time. Whaley had been found guilty on nearly every bogus charge the Rand administration could come up with, and the sentencing phase had already begun. Kyoko returned to the living room, unzipped her electronics bag, and, along with the others, started setting up. So that was, it wasn't the first scene of the book, but it was the first scene from the protagonist's point of view. So
Okay.
now I'm gonna read a scene that's a little later in the book. So it follows up from the first scene, but there's a lot of hacking scenes and preparation scenes in between. So, but I'm gonna skip that. And then there's some scenes going on with what the bad guys are doing. The Fin and Tonic, a 42-foot fishing boat that they'd chartered with cryptocurrency, bounced into the furious black sky, then smashed down again with a crash. Kyoko gripped the arms of her tightened-down swivel chair and fought not to throw up or scream in terror. Battered by wind and rain, the clear tarp around the bridge fluttered violently, threatening to rip from its fasteners and fly away. "Quite the squall, ain't it?" the captain said, gripping the steering wheel from the center chair, struggling to keep the boat angled against the white-capped waves. "If they swung parallel to the waves," he'd explained, "they could capsize. And if they drove straight into them, they might bury the bow." The captain was old, with leathery dark skin and thinning green curls beneath the Miami Dolphins' Super Bowl champions cap. "Don't normally go out in weather like this," he said, "especially after dark." That was Pell's idea, so no one would see them. "We have faith in you," Kyoko told the captain. According to his ComNet site, he'd been piloting boats for decades. Gripping the other passenger chair on the bridge deck, Nicholas stared into his augmented reality glasses, verifying their course and monitoring the VHF radio for Coast Guard patrols. Pell had lessened that worry by calling in a fake trip about drug smuggling into Biscayne Bay, well to the south. Pell, Charles, and Elzira were below in the cabin, along with their bags of gear. The boat didn't have a SATCOM, so there wasn't much they could do until they reached the mainland. Another rise. Kyoko's muscles tensed in anticipation. The boat plunged down, leaving her stomach behind. They smacked bottom with a shudder. Water crashed over the bow and splashed against the tarp. Despite the scopo patch behind her left ear, she almost retched. "Please, Omazu, O Poseidon, grant us safe passage." Kyoko had given up on the gods after what happened in Sao Paulo, but this was a good time for a truce. The captain tacked to stay on course. "'Tain't the first time someone paid me to sneak across the water," he said, "but first time I've been dumb enough to do it in a storm." And they were only an hour out of port. It would have been a 4-hour trip in calm seas, the captain had said, but in this weather, they'd be lucky to arrive at all. No lights on the horizon or in the air. Not that Kyoko could see far through the storm. The radar display on the console screen showed some white triangles in the perimeter, embedded in white bands of green, yellow, and red. Kyoko pointed at the screen. "What are those triangles?" she asked. They had small alphanumeric codes to the side. "Don't touch nothing," the captain growled. "Freighters, tankers, not to worry," he added. Another rise and fall. A loud thump came from the cabin below. What was that? She wondered. Someone shouted, the voice carrying above the dueling wind and engines. Sounded like Charles, cursing. Kyoko turned to Nicholas. "What is it? What happened?" Kyoko spoke quietly into his wraparound mic, then turned toward her. "Charles wanted to know why there aren't any seatbelts. Is he okay?" Nicholas shrugged. "Probably. He'd be screaming if he broke something." The waves diminished as they neared the Florida coast, though the rain didn't let up. "Westerly winds working in our favor now," the captain said. Kyoko checked her comlink. They were 2 hours behind schedule. "Can we go faster then?" "Yeah." The captain pushed the dual throttle forward. They picked up speed. It was hard to see much through the sheets of rain, but a glow appeared along the horizon, brightest to the south. Ahead, a light swept across the sky every 10 seconds or so. "Is that a lighthouse?" Kyoko asked. "Yep," the captain said. "That's the Jupiter Lighthouse. That's where we headed. I got a GPS navigator, but I like to see where I'm going." Kyoko didn't see any other boats, nor anything on the radar display. No comment signal, but they were still miles from the coast, with heavy rain in between. She hoped MPAT was still waiting for them and hadn't given up or been accosted by the police. The waves picked up as they approached the inlet, rocking the boat up and down, left and right. Sweat dripped down the captain's cheeks as he stared ahead, gripping the wheel. "Hate these shoals." They roared between two rock jetties. Then the waves died. The captain slowed the boat and it seemed to sag with relief. "Welcome to the United States," Kyoko told Nicholas in quiet Portuguese. So that's just the beginning of their troubles. Now I'm going to do, this next scene is set in Better World, which is the shared virtual reality that MediaCorp owns and operates and has over 1 billion subscribers, close to 2 billion by the time of this book. And Kyoko and her hacker friends, Pell and Charles, and their friends in the Collective, which is a sort of decentralized movement of highly skilled hackers. They're trying to wrest control of Better World from MediaCorp and disable the company's spyware that they put on people's suits. And they're also trying to find out more about this supposed research project that they're doing with people's brains. So in this scene, they create a sensational disruption that will force MediaCorp to patch their software. And Charles plans to hide his own program within that patch. And that's how that, and combined with some other things, is how they plan to get access. Kyoko logged into Better World as a young male executive wearing a blue blazer, khaki pants, a gold watch, and eyeglasses. She teleported to the Arcadia Amphitheater, where re-elect President Rand rally was scheduled, their first target. With access to all the source code for Better World, Charles had figured out how to use the teleport pads to clone avatars. They'd only be able to exploit this vulnerability once, but the whole point was to force MediaCorp to deploy a patch that he'd alter. The Arcadia Amphitheater was a series of marble benches rising up a hillside and curving in a half circle around a stage. Kyoko had arrived early to record the coming spectacle and climbed to the center of the top bench for the best field of view. Her eyeglasses had 30x magnification, enough to see the expressions on people's faces. Speakers and screens were arrayed around the stage below. along with Rand signs and smiling teenage cheerleaders, girls and boys with a diversity of skin colors but unerringly perfect features. Avatars arrived from the 6 teleport pads outside the amphitheaters, and the benches began to fill. Hail to the Chief played, and President Rand took the stage, smiling and waving. His hair was immaculate, not a strand suggesting disorder. The cheerleaders, who were probably bots, jumped and waved pom-poms. Most of the audience, who'd filled about half the seats, stood and cheered. Is that really President Rand behind that avatar, Kyoko wondered, or one of his campaign flunkies? Would be nice if it was Rand, but unlikely. Thank you all for coming, Rand's voice boomed through the speakers. Rand's arrival was the cue for Charles and 5 other collectivistas, 1 at each teleport pad. They'd close the teleports to the outside, then unleash their attack. Angry-faced, gray-haired women began pouring from the teleport pads, wearing polka-dotted dresses and clutching wooden rolling pins. They strode into the amphitheater, wagging fingers at President Rand and shouting, "Shame! Shame! Shame!" Blue-uniformed security staff rushed forward, but the grandmas overwhelmed them, pounding them with rolling pins and shoving them to the ground. Behind the skirmish line, other grandmas launched ranged attack, pulling off their clunky-heeled shoes and hurling them at Rand. At least a dozen shoes bounced off Rand's head and torso, knocking them to the stage floor. Kyoko cheered inside, but didn't let her avatar reflect that. Rand's security team formed a circle around the president as grandmas climbed onto the stage, shouting, "Shame!" and smacking anyone in front of them with rolling pins. Rand vanished, as expected. His retinue and bots stayed put, trying vainly to hold back the onrush. Even though there was no point, they'd already lost. Beholders appeared above the amphitheater, spheres with a single roomy cat eye above a gaping mouth of needle-sharp teeth and waving tentacles on top. Cybersecurity specialists with admin access. They swiveled their tentacles toward the grandmas and froze them in place. Then the teleport pads disappeared. Time to go. Kyoko switched off her Comnet connection. In Better World, her avatar was programmed to erase itself if that happened. The angry grandma assault continued elsewhere in Better World, attacking Rand's campaign headquarters and MediaCorp's virtual corporate campuses. Okay, so that's the end of my reading. That's the first time I've ever read that scene, so I apologize if it was a little bumpy. And the first scene, actually, that was the first time I've ever read that scene also.
So do you do a lot of readings?
I do. Well, I went to a lot of virtual science fiction conventions in the fall, and I guess starting in May and then going to the end of the year. And I had 2 virtual book releases. So normally I have a book release so I'm a member of the Baltimore Science Fiction Society. They have this big, really cool library in the Highland Town district of Baltimore, and it actually seems to be like a TARDIS because it's like a 2-story row house on the outside, painted purple, and so it seems like it's just this row house. But you go inside, and then there's this room, like the entry room is this kind of room. It's got some books in it, and then you go past that room, and there's this gigantic library that stretches back really far, and it's really high, it's 2 stories tall. There's a balcony, and there's a Dalek on the balcony.
Some Warehouse 13 going on there.
Yeah, so you go and go, whoa! I must be in a time machine because it's like the Doctor's TARDIS. It must be inside a TARDIS because it's so much bigger inside than it is outside. So
Right.
I have events there, and then last year I also, or I guess it was the year before, I had a party at a friend's house, and that was for Wrath of Leviathan. So it's set mostly in. The first book is set mostly in Baltimore, so I had Baltimore events. And then the second one set mostly in Sao Paulo, so we had a Brazilian theme with caipirinhas and Brazilian food and Brazilian music, and so
That sounds amazing.
yeah, so it's a lot of fun. But this year, pandemic time, so everything was online.
So we do have some questions out here.
Okay,
Let me pull these up. Let me pull these up here. I'm going to hide that for
I'm
a
going to
second.
get a drink of water here.
Okay. Here we go. Is there any other genre that you are interested in writing in, or that you think you would excel at writing in?
So I actually like writing in different genres and different points of view and different characters, because that it challenges me as a writer, and it also keeps me interested. So I think, all right, this next project is going to be completely different, and so that helps me get really into the project. Like, this is going to be new and exciting. So I've written a sort of quasi steampunk fantasy alternate history book that still in edit mode, and I have an alternate history that's set in a world where FDR was overthrown in a coup in the 30s, and the U.S. and all the other countries. The U.S. is as a superpower, but it's run by a fascist government, and
Oh boy.
so it's about this. This farm kid, he's 19, and his friends in this Illinois farm town, and how they get sucked up into a revolution. And then my short stories are all over the place. I have some children's stories. I have some like weird stories, that are experimental formats. I've got some horror, steampunk adventure, all kinds of stuff. And then I'm editing a political satire, or satire of local government and politics, based on my involvement in local government.
So,
And
man, you do write all over the place. Like,
so
that's a lot of jobs.
that's a lot of fun. And then I'm writing that post-apocalyptic horror novella. It's hopefully it will not turn into a novel. I've said it. I've outlined it to be a novella, but sometimes books get to be longer than I want them to.
That's true. They can kind of take on their own life form. Okay, so we actually have several questions. Let me pull up a different one here.
And thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you to everybody out there, of course. This is actually one that I was wondering myself, which is, have you traveled much to include the details of the Bahamas and Brazil? Like, do you go to the places that you write about? Do you research them in other ways? Both?
Kind of both. Well, I have been to both the Bahamas and Brazil, and in fact, I've worked in both places.
Oh,
not
cool.
not for long periods of time, but for a little bit. So,
Do you speak Portuguese?
I spoke just enough to get by. I was not fluent by any means, but I spoke Spanish like reasonably well, although I haven't used it in a while. So, and Portuguese is just close enough to be dangerous in that it's actually harder in a way to learn Portuguese if you learn Spanish, but I muddled through it reasonably well.
You got there. Okay, so let's see here. We have, how about, is there any book series that is your personal guilty pleasure to read, or that you would perhaps like to write in?
Let's see. So maybe the guilty pleasure would be the Hunger Games trilogy, which I know they're YA books, but they were a lot of fun to read.
I read tons of YA, actually.
And I recently read what's that book by Octavia Butler.
Let's see.
Parable. The Seller's Parable.
Something about a parable. Okay, let's see what
I think it's the Seller's Parable.
A Parable of the Sower.
Parable of the Sower. There we go. I was close. And that was supposedly a YA book, but it didn't really seem like a YA book at all to me. It seemed like it was written for adults, and it had a lot of gruesome stuff in it. So, but I read all sorts of stuff from like classical literature to horror I like detective stories and police procedurals, and I read all kinds of stuff, I guess. And I also I exchange books with writers a lot.
Oh, cool.
So it's beta readers. So we either it's a case of providing critiques to each other, or a case of reading each other's books so we can blurb each other's books. So that's at least a third of the books that I read are other people's books, and most of those are science fiction.
So I have a question, if I may.
If I could, I'd like to give a shout out to Eric Bakutis, who has also written some cyberpunk police procedural, and also writes fantasy and far future science fiction.
Where would people find Eric?
Here's the one I said that. I guess Google. Let me see. I'll type it in the chat box.
Okay. Don't put a link into the chat. Just put his name, because if you try to put a link, it'll get rejected. You have to have admin privileges. You have to have the wrench, as they say. We do have this question here. Given the intrigue clearly in your books, do you plan out the scenes before you write? And if you don't, then how do you manage to keep it all organized during the writing process?
Separating the dot here so it won't hit the link.
Okay.
So the question was, so what I do is start out with a story idea, and I've got a list of literally hundreds of story ideas, like as they come to me, like especially if I wake up and have a weird dream, I'll try to write it down as soon as I can. And then other things that come to me, like one of the, so Board and Salt, which was the alternate history story about FDR being overthrown in a coup, that came to me while I was riding my bike to work. So I come up with ideas for stories, and I'll follow up with a very small percentage of them, and just expand that into a synopsis, and then expand that synopsis into a long synopsis, and then character profiles, and then I make those bigger, and then eventually turn that into an outline, and then I bring that outline, I import it into Scrivener, and I start writing the scenes. But once I start writing, usually the book changes dramatically, because the characters will usually do something different than what I want them to do, or what I originally had them do. They'll do something. They'll do something different, like a cat will jump on them.
All of my coffee, just like all of it. That would be. Yes.
So the
Okay.
butterfly effect, you don't know where that could lead. It could have landed on your keyboard while you were in the middle of a hack, and you were
Yeah.
knocked offline, and your hack failed, and your group had to come up with a new plan.
It did get
So
all
you
over
see
my brand new
these things
shirt.
happen. Yeah, see, or maybe you were supposed to appear at some party dressed as a certain person. So I have in Sleep State Interrupt, they um, they have these very elaborate, expensive looking. So they're getting in as the son of a billionaire and his fiance. So they have a custom made tux and gown made that have all these passive electronics woven into the threads of the suit. And so what if they didn't show up?
That sounds
What if,
cool.
or what if a cat jumped up and spilled coffee on Whaley's ballroom dress?
I try to. There's already coffee. I mean, like a whole mug of coffee just like dumped on my floor. Yeah, it's great. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you, Kat, for disrupting my stream. But I guess that it's funny, like you mentioned that though, how the things just kind of sometimes take on a life of their own because other authors have talked about that as well. They'll say that they plan to do something, but then when they get into writing the characters, whatever they kind of thought in their head didn't really fit the characters or fit the scene, and it ends up going in a direction that they hadn't really planned, you know? So,
yeah.
um,
So mostly I try to get to know my characters, and so both outlining and creating the characters at the same time helps me with that. So they have definite goals, they have backgrounds, and they have things that they want to do. They have goals, they have conflicts.
what's your favorite
I'm
part of
making like
world
real.
building?
What's that?
What is your favorite part of world building? Is it the character creation, the setting creation, all of it?
It's creating a playlist for them.
Like,
so I will listen to either music that has to do with the scene. So that usually is instrumental music or sound effect music that doesn't have lyrics. But I also have playlists for each one of the characters that that has to do with the character's personality and what I think that they would listen to, and it also has to do with a little bit with the story. So it's like, what would they be listening to while the story was taking place if they were, you know, had their iPad or whatever.
do you ever
Um,
publish your playlists anywhere? Like, do you put them maybe in the back of the book or the front of the book or
no, but
on
that's
a
a good idea.
website?
I should put them yeah, online.
I guess I
Like,
mentioned that because I know that I know from my own experience in the realm of, people who, I mean, uh, kind of recreational writers who like to do fanfic or like to, I don't know, like do their own kind of character creations, maybe for video games and stuff. They love to also create playlists that go along with their characters. So I guess I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool thing, like that you do that. And do you put that somewhere so people can share back and forth and just be exposed to new music and whatnot? So get an
yeah, that's a
idea.
good idea.
I don't know, just a thing. So, okay, you guys, I'm super sorry about my cat. The culprit actually is Yule Cat over here on the side. So if you guys know who I'm talking about from our Yule event, now I think she's mad at me because I made her wear a Christmas hoodie, and now she's kicking over my coffee. We're coming to the we're coming to the point in the show where, oh my gosh, where is all my stuff just got kicked off? We're coming to the point in the show where we are going to do the giveaway drawing. And so this is where you would put your name into the comments. I have one more question to ask Ted. And while he's answering that, please put your name into the comments and I will then take your names, put them onto the wheel of win, and then we will spin. And Ted, what are we having for our drawing prizes today?
They are copies of the first two books of the Better World trilogy, Sleep State Interrupt and The Wrath of Leviathan. So it's not just one book, it's two books. and it's in whatever electronic format that you prefer.
Okay.
There are hard copies of these books out there that you can get on Amazon or at various bookstores, but mostly in the Baltimore, D.C. area. But this being the pandemic, it's
Yeah, everything
everything's
is just
electronic these days.
discombobulated, right? So, okay, well, so the one last question that I have to ask you while we're allowing people some time. Oh, I should also say, before I get to that question, there are two other ways that you guys can always be automatically entered into every drawing we do for a maximum of 3 entries per person. You can join our YouTube channel by clicking the join button at any level. You can become a member, or you can become a member on our Patreon. And by doing that, you will be entered into every single author reads and every single Fae News giveaway that we do, which come to about 8 of them a month. So please check that out. It also supports us, of course, in our lovely work here. But my last question is, since you said that this is what you read from us today is the third trilogy, third book in the trilogy, and that, you know, it just came out at the end of last year. What are your plans for 2021, if you have any, with regards to writing new stories, what do you got on the docket?
And I want to, I was thinking about your sharing sound files or sharing playlists. So probably most of the songs are on Spotify. So I will create some lists there, and I'll give you a shout out for the idea.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much. That would be awesome. I know also we have some special Patreon bonus content. So if you do join either Patreon or the channel today, you guys will have access to the cool content. It's never before publicly seen art from your books.
Yep, it's art that has never been used anywhere else. And I guess to answer your question, so I have, let's see, I think 3 books that I'm editing, and then 1 that I'm halfway through. So I could come up with, I think I could come out with, one of them will definitely come out next year. I don't know if more than 1 will come out, or whether there will be several books out in 22. So we'll see. But something will come out.
So something will come out. So
probably Born in Salt, which is the alternate history book in fascist US.
Whew, that sounds scary. Too close to home. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and put our names. Let me grab my Wheel of Wind. Here we go. And I will put our last names that we have out there. And last chance. I'm going to count down from 3. Anybody else? 1, 3, 3, 2, 1. I see no more names, and so I will go ahead and put this onto the wheel. And so, do we want to do 2 drawings then, since it's for 2 different?
No, because if they get the second book, then it won't make much.
So
sense.
2 books, 1 winner.
How about this? We'll do 2 drawings. The first one gets the first book, and then the second one that you do gets the first 2 books.
Okay, if that is how you would like to do it. So here we go.
So this is for the first book alone.
Yes, for the first book in the series. Here we go. Ooh. Congratulations to, oh boy, I don't know if I can say that last name. Sasha Vysorek, yeah.
We'll say Sasha.
Congratulations, you are the winner. Yes, of book number 1 in the TED series, and so we will go ahead and do a drawing, and this winner will get books number 1 and 2. Very generous.
You'll send me their email address, or
I will. After the show, I will give you their information. Kavajan, congratulations, and thank you for being thank you for being a patron. So I am sure that they will like that. and I will get you their information after the show.
And remind me when you do which one what.
Which one is which? Yes. Well, these videos all don't come down, so we can always go back and reference them at any time and continue to share them and watch them after the fact. So they all stay up with all your information. Ted, it is 3:06. Is there anything that you would like to say to everybody before we let you go this afternoon?
I guess goodbye and thanks for coming.
Yep, absolutely.
Check me out at tcweber.com.
And yes, your information is in the low bar, so our viewers can get back to that also at any time. And well, with that said, then we shall bid you all adieu. I see, I've got one comment here. Oh, thank you so much.
Happy 2021.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your work with us. So congratulations. And here we go. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Oh, today's Friday. We'll see you back here on Sunday for Handmade Home Shopping, 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hello, friends. This is Gone for Hammerhands. Thank you for checking out Fairy Princess Lolly's channel. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. And if you'd like to support these magical creations, fly over to our Patreon and join the fairy family. Safe travels!